In November 1998, the Lakewood neighborhood of Jacksonville, Florida, was a quiet enclave where the evening routine was as predictable as the tide. 8-year-old Maddie Clifton, known for her love of basketball and the piano, finished her music practice and headed outside at 4:30 p.m. By 6:20 p.m., she was missing. After a frantic search by neighbors yielded nothing, her mother placed a 911 call at 6:33 p.m. The report triggered an immediate mobilization of local law enforcement, with patrol cars arriving in Lakewood as the sun went down. Within the hour, the neighborhood was transformed into a coordinated police operation. As flashlights moved through backyards and officers began taking statements, Lakewood transitioned from a quiet residential street into an active investigation site. The search expanded over the next week into a massive regional effort. The FBI and the National Guard were called in to assist, with search teams moving through woodland, checking neighborhood dumpsters, and descending into city sewers. Joshua Phillips, a 14-year-old who lived directly across the street from the Cliftons, was among those looking for the girl. He and his family were seen out in the neighborhood for days, participating in the search effort alongside the victim's family and friends. Despite a $100,000 reward and thousands of searchers on the ground, the investigation hit a wall. There were no signs of a struggle, no discarded items of clothing, and no leads suggesting where she had gone. The community continued to look outward, searching for an external predator who might have entered the neighborhood. They were unaware that the person responsible was standing in their search circles every night. 7 days later, Joshua's mother was cleaning his bedroom when she noticed a persistent, foul odor. She traced the smell to a leak coming from the base of his broken waterbed. When she pulled back the heavy mattress to investigate the frame, she discovered a small white sock caught in the structure of the bed. Hidden inside the dark wooden base of that waterbed was the lifeless body of 8-year-old Maddie Clifton. Joshua was taken into custody at his middle school and confessed shortly after. He claimed it began as a backyard accident, where he hit Maddie with a baseball and then brought her into his room because he feared his father's reaction to her crying. While the entire city searched the surrounding woods and ponds, the teenager had spent 6 nights sleeping in his room, directly on top of the bed where he had hidden his victim. While Joshua framed the killing as a panicked response to an accident, the state's forensic case relied on a series of findings that told a different story. The autopsy found that after being struck with a baseball bat, the victim was still alive. Joshua admitted to hearing her moaning, at which point he pulled her back out, slit her throat twice, and stabbed her 7 times in the chest with a pocket knife. Investigators also found evidence of preparation for a long-term cover-up. Joshua used rolls of tape and multiple air fresheners to seal the bed frame, attempting to hide the physical signs of the crime. Technicians also noted a lack of blood evidence in the backyard or on the path to his room. This suggested that the injury did not occur during a game outside, but rather that the attack had taken place entirely within the bedroom. Joshua Phillips was tried as an adult and convicted of first-degree murder. In 1999, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The jury reached its verdict based on the calculated steps taken to carry out the murder and hide the body. At the time, the community viewed the life sentence as a permanent and final resolution. In 2012, 13 years after the original sentencing, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling in Miller v. Alabama that altered the legal landscape for juvenile offenders across the country. This ruling established that mandatory life sentences without parole for juveniles are unconstitutional. The court relied on neurological research showing that an underdeveloped teenage brain results in diminished culpability, a lower level of legal responsibility for one's actions. This meant that every juvenile sentenced to mandatory life without parole was now entitled to a new hearing, regardless of how much time had passed since their conviction. The legal system moved to address what it saw as a constitutional error. However, for the families of the victims, this meant their cases were no longer settled, forcing them back into court to relive the original trauma. By June 2025, a now 41-year-old Joshua Phillips was back in a Duval County court row. Having served 25 years, he was legally eligible to apply for a review and reduction of his life sentence. His defense team pointed to his record as a model prisoner and argued that he is no longer the impulsive 14-year-old who committed the crime, claiming that rehabilitation is now possible. Maddie's sister and mother have been forced to return to these hearings repeatedly, providing victim impact statements decades later to argue against his release. Maddie's mother remains firm in her stance. Maddie never got the chance to grow up, graduate, or have a family. In her view, Maddie's sentence was final, and the killers should be as well. This leaves us with a difficult question. We must weigh the modern science of juvenile brain development against the permanent loss felt by a family, and decide what justice looks like when the damage is irreparable.